Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening and welcome to the special focus. My name is Zahid Jadwat and we are together until 8 p.m. tonight right here on Salah Media, of course via our live stream on salahmedia.com/lesson-live and on our Facebook page and on our YouTube page. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. Now, the neighboring nation of Mozambique has for the past 3 years experienced unrest and conflict in its northern province of Cabo Delgado, which is the site of a gas project that has attracted billions of dollars of international investment. The conflict was initially perceived as a rebellion by local youth in the province, but has since escalated into a deadly insurgency purportedly linked with the Islamic State in the Middle East. Last week, insurgents took over the strategic port town of Mocimboa de Praia, inflicting heavy casualties. Monitoring groups say that so far at least 1,500 people have died during violent terrorist attacks in the province, and an estimated 250,000 people have been displaced. So tonight we are trying to find out what exactly is happening in this area of Mozambique and what effect does this have on the Southern African region. Of course, us here as neighboring country, South Africa, it should be something of concern. And we want to also find out what would be the best solution and intervention into this matter that is unfolding in our neighboring country of Mozambique. So let me now introduce you to our guests. Firstly, we have Professor Yusuf Adam of the Universidad Eduardo Mondlane, that's in Mozambique. Thank you for joining us. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum salam.
Indeed, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, Professor Adam. We were supposed to be joined by Tom Bowker, who is the editor at Zitama News in Mozambique, but unfortunately, he is unable to join us. So, in his place later on at about 7:30, we will be joined by Masija Chisungu. She's a local community activist in Mozambique. Let me also welcome our next guest. We also have Jasmine Opperman, who is the Africa Director at Terrorism Research and Analysis Consortium. Do we have Jasmine at the moment? Jasmine?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much. Just one correction, please. I'm with Athlete. I'm no longer with Track.
Okay, my apologies for that. We also have Lisa Lowe. We have Ms. Lisa Lowe Fodran, who is at the Institute for Security Studies. Thank you so much for joining us as well, Lisa.
Thank you. Good evening.
To the listeners, if you'd like to participate in this discussion, remember you can get in touch with us. You can send us a WhatsApp message to the number 061-766-0355. Alternatively, you can tweet and tag at Salah Media, and please don't forget to use the hashtag the special focus. Now, let's get straight to you, Professor Yusuf Adam. So what exactly is happening in the Cabo Delgado province of Mozambique?
At this moment, we are in a situation of war, and because of military action of I call them Mashababus, which is the name which the local population gives to them. The Mashababus have attacked, and in a certain way they have disrupted by attacking Mocimboa de Praia, attacking the port, and also they killed a lot of people inside the villages around Mocimboa de Praia, and about 80 km from Mocimboa de Praia in one road. Place where the road which comes from Pemba joins the road which goes to Mocimboa and Moeda, and there they also attack that. So there is a lot of people who are dead. They occupied the port, but I'm not sure occupying the port, because I don't think a guerrilla group or group which is fighting a guerrilla war will try to take up positions, because they can easily be attacked by helicopters, planes, etc. They are they go around. So Musimba da Praia is at this moment, I wouldn't say occupied totally by them, because there are army units trying to fight them, and also occupy certain areas inside the town. What has been the consequence of this is that there is the trucks which went from whatever Nampula, Nacala, etc., try to go to Afungi where the LNG plant is. They don't circulate, and they can't use the normal tarred road, which goes from Pemba up to Macomia, from Macomia to Awas, and then to Musimba da Praia. That road is not usable. So there is a big number of trucks in Moeda. They can't circulate, and there are big number of trucks with cargo in Palma. So basically what they have managed to do is to disrupt the normal transport activities in the province. They have killed a lot of people. It's very difficult to talk to people who are in Musimba da Praia. I tried this morning again, and afternoon. At some minutes, I've been also talking to some of the people who, when I'm in the field doing research, work with me, and they said that, look, I have some of my family are in Musimba. I can't speak to them for a week. Probably they are dead. Probably they are in the middle of the bush, because the telephone lines are not working. There is
And yeah, okay. Let me just double check. Do we still have Jasmine Opperman on the line?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
here.
we do have a. So, Jasmine, you have been researching the situation in Mozambique for some time. You've been following what has been unfolding around that region. So, are these apparent terrorist activities isolated to the Cabo Delgado region, or are they spreading across the country?
At this point in time, there's simply no indication that the conflict area, the area of attacks, and of activities of the groups we have identified, um, have expanded beyond Cabo Delgado. There is a persistent concern about central Mozambique, specifically Nampula, that there could be sentiments towards the insurgents. There were several reports of people trying to move from those specific areas to support the insurgents, but where we sit tonight, we simply cannot state that there is geographical expansion of the violence. No.
Okay, and over to Liesel. According to an article published by the Daily Maverick, an expert says that religion is a limited factor in the spread of violent extremism in the country, as only 18% of Mozambicans are Muslim, with poverty and exclusion from development being stronger factors. Do you agree with this narrative that it's perhaps poverty that is feeding and driving this insurgency? Okay, we seem to have lost Lisa Lofodran. We'll try to get her back on the line. But let's continue with this discussion. We'll ask now, go back to Professor Yusuf Adam. So, Professor Adam, what has been the response from local authorities to this insurgency, and has it been effective?
Look, let's go back to the question which you put before. When do you have revolutions, insurgencies, wars, etc.? These things happen when you have injustice. Okay, and injustice has various formats. When we're speaking about groups which are involved which are part of violent extremist groups. These groups appear when you have youth bulge, when you have repression, when you don't have, you have also destruction of nature. Don't forget that Cabo Delgado had fantastic forests, still have some, but a lot of it has been cut. Yesterday, someone denounced that a boat was leaving the port of Pemba with about 100 containers of hardwood to China. So, in the middle of war, this kind of things still continue. And there is also the local population has been saying constantly that these projects which arrived, the LNG projects, they have been taking out their land without proper compensation. They think that the compensation they are being given are not enough and it is not fair. So in the middle of all these issues, you have a war which developed. It didn't start, I'm sorry to say, in 87. As it is said, my first contact with some kind of repression against youth, etc., was in 85. And there are also other causes of conflict. My friend Joe Hanlon did publish one of his bulletins where he makes a list of all the violent activities which have occurred in Cabo Delgado and the reasons for it. So, how do you control? How do you resolve this? You resolve this by engaging in some kind of dialogue and conversation with the people. But when you are in this situation where the government soldiers think that most of the peasants which are around, they are fisher folk and peasants in the coast, they help the insurgents. And the local people also think that the army is beating up them and doesn't treat them properly. You have a recipe for disaster. Now, what I would like to say is that, okay, I agree with Yasmin that there hasn't been evidence of these groups going south from Cabo Delgado. But there is a lot of rumors. People saying, oh, we know about, they probably are in Angosh, probably they are in Nacala. But in the end, when you try to squeeze out the information and talk to people who are in the field, there is no doubt about it. And in Cabo Delgado was also during some months ago, they had this conviction that people left Nampula to go and fight and join the rebels join the insurgents. That hasn't been confirmed. So it is. What we need is to go for peace. We have to. All of us have to work to have a situation of peace and stop this madness, because there are thousands of people dead, 1,500. I'm not sure if that's a number, and we have to fight for peace, and we have to help to resolve the situation. And we can't resolve the situation only through armed means.
May I just come in here?
Indeed. So, yeah, let me just give Jasmine an opportunity to respond to that disagreement that Professor Yusuf Adam supposedly has regarding the expansion of the terrorist activities. Jasmine?
Yeah, I do agree. Actually, the professor and I, Professor Adam, do agree in terms of the expansion. But I want to come back to your question on the religious issue. I think it's of
Mm,
critical importance. If one looks at the media recently, if one,
yeah.
and I attended quite a few conferences, and what is interesting
Okay.
is that you had a lot of participants, but a few from Mozambique. That is worrying. But the Islamic State in Cabo Delgado has to be contextualized for where it stands. To refer to it as an Islamic State led insurgency is totally overplaying their position. They are trying to propagate, they're trying to hijack, but we need to be careful to refer to the insurgency merely as a global local issue and ignoring the local roots that Professor Adam has referred to. Thank you.
Mm,
Thank you.
Mm.
yeah. Okay. So, Professor Ms. Liesel, just before we move on with this discussion, I want you to pick up on what Professor Yusuf Adam has been saying regarding the response from the Mozambican government to what is unfolding in the Cabo Delgado province. So, Professor Yusuf Adam says he would prefer that we counter this terrorism activities that are taking place with dialogue rather than actual armed military response. What are your thoughts on that, Liesel?
Mm. Yes, can you hear me? Sorry,
Yes, I can hear you.
okay. Yes, that is very interesting because, I work for the Institute for Security Studies and we've been tracking the terror situation in the Sahel region of Africa and with Boko Haram. And some of my colleagues had actually, after, 7, 8 years, that we've now been dealing with these jihadist groups, both in the Lake Chad Basin and in the Sahel, now coming and saying, the military options haven't worked. People are looking at other issues such as peace committees, dialogue, as Professor Adam says, also looking at the root causes, dealing with the root causes. So at this point where we are in Mozambique, we really feel that strongly that it would be important not to replicate the same mistakes that have been made elsewhere. Our problem is, sorry, I missed some of the discussion, but I think the others in the room also are aware of the difficulties with Professor Adam. We've even been, he knows there are many people who have tried to do research on, fact-based analysis on exactly the motives and so on of the insurgents. So we have to take the information we have, look at what has happened in other parts of Africa and has not worked, and as I said, issues like committees, dialogue, which the governments reject for now, but it is an option that some of my colleagues at the ISS have researched and are strongly pushing at this point.
Yeah, just before we move on, Liesel, so are the insurgents in this region influenced by local dynamics, or is there some sort of outside influence that is driving the group? What do we know about the motive of this insurgency?
Yes, I mean, as Jasmine rightly said, to say that the insurgency is led by the Islamic State, we don't have that proof. I mean, I think she's the one who's been tracking it so closely. Over 30 of these attacks have been claimed by the Islamic State, right? And it's not clear for us at this point in what measure we've seen paraphernalia, we've seen videos, we've seen propaganda from the Islamic State in the Central African province, but it would be an exaggeration. And I think what is interesting, Jasmine, is that a couple of weeks ago we had one of these big webinars and debates around this insurgency. And in 2 hours or an hour and a half, there wasn't one mention of the Islamic State. Now that the international media has now lashed onto this issue, I could almost say, everybody is now focusing on the Islamic State now that it's almost in the limelight, which is like an interesting development. And I think it's linked to messaging and how perceptions are changed and how the media is also reporting on it. Because I'm in South Africa, most of us, and I think it's very, very harmful, the fact that for about 2 years there have been hardly any reporting in South Africa on this insurgent. Now suddenly, in the last couple of weeks, people are waking up, scrambling for information, things get distorted. We're talking about Sharia law in Mozambique da Praia and issues like that. So there's been misinformation, and especially on something so extremely sensitive, and it can easily be turned into a sensationalist kind of an issue when you mention the Islamic State globally, So I would very strongly go back to what we've been saying, looking at the local drivers, looking at some of the studies at the ISS. The first one we did at the end of 2018, interviewing local religious leaders, trying to get to the root causes. Professor Adam has also done lots of studies on, the land issue, the marginalization. There are ethnic issues, there are political issues. Poverty and marginalization is one thing, but when, in Maputo, people were telling me about the political issues and the change from one Frelimo government to another, and networks of politicians, we can't discard that there's also those elements. It's a toxic mix of various issues that have, led to this thing now mushrooming.
It's interesting when you mention that it might just be an over-exaggeration if we say that these attacks have been led by ISIS. So, Professor Adam, what exactly do we know about the perpetrators of these attacks? Who are they, and what are their motives? Professor Adam?
Say the
Professor Adam?
Yes, are you hearing me?
Yes, you may go ahead.
Okay. In South Africa, people started to become nervous, and the newspapers and media, etc., started to give some attention when the Islamic State, I don't know if they said it, but it was said that they said that we will attack South Africa if South Africa gets involved in Mozambique. South Africa had supported Mozambique militarily, protecting the coast, etc. So even in the field, we don't have any evidence that the Islamic State is dead, unless you look at the questions about it. And I would like to say that before, people would say, these groups in Mocimboa da Praia, Palma, Nangada, etc., and the other districts on the coast are receiving help from ADF, this group which left Uganda and is now in the Congo, and they are fighting to send away the President Museveni. So what we really need to understand is that the Islamic State is trying to reap some benefits of propaganda. And then there is also a tendency all over Europe and in other places of saying there is this, the Moors have arrived back and we have to attack them and we have to control it. And, these are the discussions going on. Don't forget that theater of war, my English is not very good, but the theater of war is always a market. It's a market for books, reports, etc., which sometimes people write huge amounts of books and they have never been on these places. They don't know the places. Then you have so many groups doing research. And I was speaking to someone and I said, look, what is the method these people use? Oh, a lot of these people which come from Maputo, etc., they make general interviews. They sit with 50, 60 people and they discuss the issues. And then what happens is that someone who is there from some Mashababu or someone photographs people and sends it to someplace, someone in the villages. And this next time they go around, they know who to attack because they know what is the opinion of these people. So I would really like that, a friend of mine who is a soldier always tells me, look, your fight is with the books. Don't come here trying to do military things, which I don't do. So what I am trying also to say to the others, please be professional, collect the data, hear the people, and transmit what the people have to say. In a situation of war, it's always complicated because rapidly you can be accused of being a collaborator or whatever. But if you work sensibly, I am sure that even the people who are in the government at the district level, provincial level, etc., they are interested in knowing what is going on. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, Jasmine, what exactly do we know about the links between this local insurgent group and the ISIS? So it would appear as though, well, according to international media, as it's been portrayed, it seems as though ISIS has been leading this campaign. But I think our guests this evening would rather differ on this situation and say that this might be a propaganda behind ISIS claiming these attacks. So, what exactly do we know, Jasmine, between about the links between this insurgent group and the actual ISIS in the Middle East?
I think if one looks, and I'm in full agreement with both Liesel and Professor Adam in terms of where our caution must be applied. But if you look at the propaganda material coming out and the claims to credit made, all the claims to credit we could accolade, successfully geolocate and link to a specific incident. So it's not that they are propagating based on any information. There is clearly some level of communication taking place that allows them to know what is happening in Cabo Delgado. If you look at the photo reports, if you look at the videos, uh, we can see that it's high quality. And interestingly enough, sometimes these claims to credit do come quickly, but just to note, they have not claimed credit actually for what they have achieved in terms of Mozambique, the prior and the port, except for two photo reports. But there are lines of communication cannot be denied. Needless to say, who they are and how this is being done is a matter beyond our capacity to determine. The concern here is the following. We need to understand where we stand with the Islamic State internationally. And there are three things I want to emphasize as quickly as I can.
Yeah.
One, the loss of the caliphate has urged
Mm.
them to create a propaganda campaign of expansion. That the caliphate, and they've admitted it, imploded, but we have learned from it. We're moving on. Two, wherever the opportunity presents itself, they will try to hijack that to their own benefit. A war of attrition, as we are seeing. And this is, again, ideally taking place in Mozambique. And I think the third factor that we cannot ignore, and this is my concern, the longer this insurgency drags on, the more opportunity it gives to the Islamic State to find an institutionalized presence. If we look at other areas, we're not talking a short period of time, before the Islamic State sets in. You can clearly see how time has given them that opportunity. Hence the urgent need to do something about the insurgency. But we are sitting with a lost dynamic. And Professor Adam has referred to that. Foreign interests in Cabo Delgado, massive investments taking place, private security companies coming in. We're talking mercenary groups moving in. So the situation is just becoming more and more complex. And sadly, we can come up with the best suggestions and the best recommendations. If there is not a political will in Maputo to deal with this matter in a far more precise and effective manner than what is happening now, the insurgency is going to linger on.
Yeah, interesting point you mentioned there about where the ISIS currently stands in the international platform. But we have to take an ad break right now, and when we get back, we will get into that. I do really want to get deeper into that discussion. But for now, let's take a quick ad break, and when we get back, we will continue. Please do stay tuned.
Remedy. Nature's Blends has a variety of natural products to help you take control of your life. Key ingredients being black seed oil, cod liver oil, glucosamine, turmeric, black seed, and Yemeni cedar honey. Add this to your favorite foods or mix with cedar honey to improve health. Black seed has a lot of benefits. Just to mention a few, it's antibacterial, anti-ulcer, anti-inflammatory, and pain-killing, etc. For more information or to order, contact Shakir Kassem on 082 777 8696 or email shakir222 at icloud.com or follow at Shakir_ABC on Instagram for all your Sunnah remedy needs. Nature's Blends, bringing nature's finest.
The world watched in collective horror as the massive explosion ripped through Beirut, a vibrant city now covered in dust. Beirut is bleeding. We at Islamic Relief are on the ground helping the Lebanese people pick up the pieces. We need food, we need water, and we need emergency aid for hundreds and thousands of the victims. You can help. You can make a difference. You can save a life. Donate now to the Islamic Relief Lebanon Emergency Appeal. Visit islamicrelief.org.za. Call 0800 111 898 and donate now.
Osman's Taj Mahal Spice and Rice. For over 80 years, Osman's Taj Mahal have been perfecting the art of the perfect blend of spices, pure, aromatic, and well-seasoned. Spices to tantalize your taste buds. From creative cuisines to gastronomical gourmet goodies. From exotic odors to traditional dishes, Osman's Taj Mahal have remained synonymous with quality spices and condiments. Taj Mahal rice, beans, and lentils. Try our range of chili bite mixes, rose and ilachi syrup, our quick and easy biryani pack, and our traditional range of spice blends. Osman's Taj Mahal. There is no substitute for quality.
Welcome back. You are tuned into the special focus with myself, Zahid Jadwat, right here on Salah Media. If you are listening via salahmedia.com/listen-live, also on our YouTube channel, as well as on our Facebook page and on our Twitter page. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. Remember that you can send us your comments and questions. The WhatsApp number for that is 061 766 0355. Alternatively, you can tweet and tag at Salar Media, and please don't forget to use the hashtag the special focus. So this evening we are discussing the current situation in Zimbabwe and the activities that have unfolded in the Cabo Delgado province of Mozambique. And our guests, just to recap, this evening we are speaking to Professor Yusuf Adam at the Universidade Eduardo Mondlane. We also are going to be joined just now by Sijia Chisungu, who is a community activist in Mozambique. Do we have her as yet? No, I don't think so. But let me also remind you that our other guests, we have Jasmine Opperman, who is at the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, ACLED. And we also have Lisa Lowe Fodron, who is from the Institute for Security Studies. Now, Jasmine, just before the ad break, we were discussing where ISIS stands on the world stage at the moment. So does it seem as though this organization is now latching onto the situation in the dynamics, local dynamics of Cabo Delgado province, and now taking advantage of what is happening here and with their propaganda? Jasmine? Jasmine Opperman? Can you hear me? Okay, it seems Jasmine Opperman is having trouble to hear us this evening. But if I could just defer the question over to you, Liesel, do you think the insurgents are now taking advantage of the local dynamics of the Cabo Delgado province?
Yes, it seems so. As I said, it's not that recent. It's been over a year now that there have been claims of attacks, and Jasmine had just before the break explained that the 30 or so that she has been tracking events that were claimed by the Islamic State are real attacks. So there is that communication. I think she is back now.
Jasmine Opperman, could you hear me? Okay, I'm not sure. We'll try to get that connection better. But in the meantime, let me welcome Sijia Chisungu, who is a community activist in Mozambique. And she's here to speak to us about the humanitarian situation that is unfolding on the ground. Welcome to the show, Sijia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to this panel today.
Indeed, it is a pleasure to be hosting you on the show this evening. But now let's speak about the humanitarian situation that is unfolding in Mozambique at the moment as a result of this insurgency. I hear that the latest reports say that at least 1,500 people have died as a result of this insurgency. So this is a growing humanitarian crisis, isn't it, Sidia?
Yes, definitely. Since the beginning of this attacks in 2017, most of us didn't have vision, and those who had information and without information you can't really make decisions. And even the numbers that were coming out, like number of deaths, number of IDPs, was not clear in the beginning. So we had to do like several campaigns to make sure that the government specifically, because this would only come from the government, will be speaking to us as citizens of the country to let us know exactly what's happening and how we can also contribute. But that didn't happen. So we had to continue like campaigning, and that's how I started just to call the attention of the people, but of the government, to make sure that we have access to information and we contribute on our level as citizens. So that was the focus of the campaign in the beginning. But since last year, March, a few weeks before Cyclone died here, we decided to give support to IDPs. But this support of IDPs, we used as a strategy to make people talk about the situation in Cabo Delgado, because what's happening. If you start to talk about Cabo Delgado, people would call you the terrorist. But today, people know who are the terrorists, not us, because we just wanted to know exactly what was happening there. So many people were targeting activists and also journalists mostly. So we did that, and the first intervention that we as activists, young people of the country, we did was to support the IDPs in Ibo Island. And as we were like collecting donations in all the country, we felt that what we were collecting was not enough, because every single day people were like moving around, not because the attacks was happening every day, but people were receiving information that probably this village will be attacked. So people tend to move to other places, and everything was like, so what do we do now? Because we don't know exactly where all the people are. Of course, we know the places where the majority number stays, but most of them, some were going to Tanzania, some were going to Nampula, some were going to Cabo Delgado City. So that's what we did last year. And this year, we thought that as young people, we should keep collecting donations, but establish a kind of a platform that will enable people to contribute how they feel much comfortable. And we have faced some challenges. One of the challenges was that in the beginning, we didn't have like faces of people who you could say, okay, I'm helping this person. So that was one of the challenge. The second thing was that people were like, so what if I contribute? Am I contributing to the really people needing, or some of them insurgents infiltrated in these groups? But it's something that we cannot ensure. What we can do is to collect and try to help everyone. And until today, we can't really tell you if we are supporting genuinely people who need all the insurgents because they are infiltrated. And one of the scenarios that we hear, because I have been in Cabo Delgado twice, and this year, I think 2 weeks ago, I was there again. And but we also have like several activists based there working with IDPs directly, that if ever when they arrive, etc., etc. And the information that we receive, for example, is that you will not find like the majority number of people are like women and children, and you won't find like men in numbers, because the justification is that the, this is so complicated and tricky at the same time, because they think that men tend to connect easily to these groups, and the women are used as spies. So there are some groups also, when they arrive in the city, they are targeted by the militaries, and they are forced to sometimes assume they are part of these terrorist groups when they are not. But it's something that, of course, I can't as a person say and put my hands on fire and say, oh no, they're not. But there are cases and scenarios that the community have to intervene, because they see that the situation is clearly the militaries trying to take advantage or something like that. So since we started all this work, we found out that there are a lot of organizations doing the same thing. Mostly they focus their work in the woods that have the majority number. For example, we have Patikipet, which is the place where we have the majority number of IDPs coming from other villages. And now one of the challenges of people is it's being more expensive to them to leave their village to the city. Most of them could just come, but they are not coming because every day it's becoming more difficult for them to leave the village because of the costs. It's being more expensive. So those who succeed to go to the cities, mostly they have possibilities, or they have family, or have like friends, connections, so that they can come. And the other number of people, they go to Nampula, which is the other province, and the majority number is located in Namialo. So we have several organizations, as the church, but also the Islamic community giving support. But mostly now we have many organizations and campaign like civils collecting donations. And last week we had like one group also organizing donations and sending to that to Cabo Delgado. And I was also leading a campaign from 15 to 17 June. We collected like around 150,000, and we were able to support around 1,200 people. and then we got more money, and then we supported more people. So now that's what we have been focused on, to like collect donations and be able to support people. But now we are thinking about the sustainability of this, because as we see, the number is just increasing every day, unfortunately.
Okay, Sidia, thank you so much for that contribution. Unfortunately, your audio quality is a bit poor, letting us down this evening. But from what I gather from what you've said and what I've been able to hear, is that we do have quite a humanitarian crisis that is unfolding on the ground as a result of this insurgency that is taking place. And unfortunately, it's individual civilians who are affected the most by this. And I think you are doing great work. You do keep it going. Keep it up with that great work. Thank you so much for your time. That was Sija Shisungu, who is a community activist in Mozambique, who is working with internally displaced people who have been displaced as a result of the insurgency that is taking place in the Cabo Delgado province. But now let's just continue the discussion that we were having with the other panelists this evening. Let me just remind you, we have Professor Yusuf Adam of the Universidade Eduardo Mondlane. We also have Jasmine Opperman, who is at the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, ACLED. We also have Lisa Lowe Baudran, who is at the Institute for Security Studies. Now, just to continue with this discussion that we were having before we were joined by CGR to speak to us about the humanitarian situation that is unfolding there. Lisa, I just want to know now, what threat does this insurgency pose to neighboring countries?
Yes, I think if it continues and, this violent extremism takes a foothold in northern Mozambique, in Cabo Delgado, it would pose a threat. It's on different levels. I think the one question is, will there be a kind of a geographical overspill of the threat in, let's say, the neighboring countries around Cabo Delgado? I think most people would concur that it's so far from Maputo, but having spread to the three provinces around the north, Tanzania, Malawi, it's not impossible. We've seen two scenarios in the rest of the continent. Once again, that's almost like the only thing we have to go on, where we have the Boko Haram insurgency spread around the Lake Chad Basin, but largely contained the Kanuri-speaking ethnic group around Maiduguri and that area. There have been also sustained military campaigns and so on, but we have not seen it spread, for example, to Lagos or Abuja or so on in Nigeria. So that's the one scenario that we've seen. The other scenario is one where in the Sahel, the insurgency that started in 2012 in Mali and in 2013 spread rapidly in the last couple of years to Niger, Burkina Faso, and even is now threatening the coastal states. So, it's unpredictable. I think at this point, others might differ, but the way we see it, the threat is perhaps one. There's a lot of anxiety within South Africa, and Professor Adam spoke about those threats, on this one ISIS website, that if South Africa were to get involved in some kind of SADC force or bilateral military aid to Mozambique, there would be attacks against South Africa. Some of my colleagues who work on the terror threat within South Africa do say that, there has been ISIS cells identified. We all know that. And that the kind of lone copycat attacks, or I don't want to say revenge attacks, but as I say, Kenya went into Somalia to punish Al-Shabaab for attacking its tourist sites on the coast. Then there were counter-attacks of Al-Shabaab in Nairobi. So it's unpredictable. You don't know whether if there would be a regional force, which at this point doesn't look likely. We had a SADC summit yesterday, and there were no decision around that. But those are the two scenarios that one would look at some geographical spread outwards from Cabo Delgado, and then the threat then of some kind of, I think we've lost our host, some kind of isolated incidents. But it's literally, it's impossible to say. We can look at the other states. We had a webinar yesterday where Professor Antoni van Niekerk looked at the fragile states. So we can identify 6 fragile states in Southern Africa. You could say, okay, which one of those maybe there could be tendencies of violent extremism, and say, okay, so how would this pan out? But honestly, to tell you the truth, it would be dishonest if we would to say, yes, we know this and this is how it's going to pan out in future. We don't, because there have been various scenarios. There's a lot of anxiety. It is a serious threat. It's definitely something that we can't continue. There has to be some action. It can't just continue escalating, because that I think there's I think that's more or less a given, that we can't have such a threat in Southern Africa for the people of Mozambique and of Cabo Delgado and the region. Definitely not, but what exactly the nature of that threat is impossible to say.
And we'll actually speak about this response that what response should the Southern African Development Council and other local bodies and South Africa as a nation itself, how we should respond to this threat that is now being posed. And as you say, we should take action before it escalates too much, before it becomes too difficult to control and contain. But we'll get to that just now. But in the meantime, Jasmine, the insurgents are gaining ground in the area in Mozambique. That's no doubt about that. But local authorities are abandoning their posts in increasing numbers. That's creating what aid officials describe to the new humanitarian as a no man's land. So what does this mean for stability and sovereignty in the region? Jasmine? Jasmine, can you hear me? Okay, it seems we are really having trouble connecting with Jasmine this evening. But if I could just put that question over to you, Professor Yusuf Adam. Officials and authorities are now leaving their posts in Cabo Delgado. What does this mean for stability in the region?
It depends. We're speaking about some of the districts where if they have difficulties in working, they go out and they come back. Okay, it is not something like there are a vacuum of public service and political power. Sometimes it is occupied by the army. But what it means is that and as it has happened many times, for example, Musimbo has been attacked 4th time now, but each time the Mashababus attack the village, the town, and they leave, and the government occupies it, or the government forced them out and occupies it. So that is a problem which has to be taken care of. But there is a problem with the humanitarian aid. I don't know which is the organization to which Sidia Shisungu belongs to, but this question of movement of people are leaving the districts, not only the ones which are attacked, others, because there is too much control by the authorities. There is also too many, boatos, I don't know what you say in English, but you are sleeping and someone comes and says, the Mashababu said they're going to attack this morning. So people just try to run away. I have colleagues who have been left Musimba with 14 orphans, which are not this guy's sons and daughters, and he came with them to Montepuez, and from Montepuez he went to another place in Rapale. And what is happening is that they need money to buy land. The land should be in Mozambique, land belongs to the state, but they need money to buy land, to construct their houses again, and this question of leaving the villages. She said that there is a cost, but there is also an administrative problem. The presidents of the village are trying to not let the people go out of the village because you have to have an authorization. Which we call in Cabo Delgado Chitambulushi, which is a letter which gives you authorization to travel. If you don't have this letter, when you arrive in some places, you are detained because there is no, you don't have a document of identification or whatever. So there is at this moment a huge opportunity of doing work. But as always, when you have all these humanitarian agencies coming out, etc., you have some confusion, and everyone goes as far as when food comes. It's not only the insurgents who try to catch food from aid. It is also the army or other groups which try to get food because they don't have. Don't forget, no one has mentioned that the Mozambican army is a good, very good army, in fact, but they have problems with budget. The state budget in Mozambique does not allow for sufficient funds to resolve a lot of problems. Okay, so we have to take care of this. SADCC has approved the plan of action to support Mozambique. I hope it comes. But then people should not forget that Mozambique has helped most of these countries. During the apartheid era, South Africa got support from us, Zimbabwe got support from us, etc., and we got support also from Tanzania, etc. So it is a very complex situation which has to be managed in a way that the people who are suffering really are protected. And that is something which is going to be very difficult. Just to finish, I was
Yeah.
speaking with someone today from Palma, and he said, Professor, I'm very preoccupied. We are all attacked. The only place which is not attacked is a fungi, where they have all this investment. We are attacked. What the hell I have done to be attacked? So they call the people in Cabo Delgado, some people call a fungi Guantanamo 2, because it is totally protected, it has security, mines, etc. But that is not, doesn't benefit the people and their security. So people live in a terrible situation, and we need anyhow that we don't lose our humanity. It's nice to see articles in the humanitarian and whatever, but it means that each one of us and the people in the government, in the army, etc., and the ones who give aid, etc., we should not lose our humanity. We need really to understand that, have someone who has lost all his houses. He was an ex-soldier from Frelimo. He lost 3 houses, and he's worked as a cook. He's the imam, in fact, and he runs away from Musimbo with 14 kids, and which are not his, and he's trying to save them.
Yeah, and just quickly looking at some of the comments which have come through, we see a comment from Yasmin Asmal who says, very interesting discussion. I must thank you, Yasmin, for your loyal listening to the show. We also have Frederick Gertz, who is also watching us live on YouTube. But unfortunately, we just have about a minute left. And Liesel, if I could give it to you to wrap up on this. Professor Yusuf was speaking about the military in Mozambique. And of course, earlier this week, reports have been coming out that the military has now run out of ammunition in Cabo Delgado. So, what are the prospects of a victory for the Mozambican army? Liesel?
Yes, I think they ran out of ammunition just for that one battle there in Mocimboa da Praia, which was reported on. But yes, we have thought that SADC and the neighboring countries could draw up a collective plan of action of the region to assist Mozambique. We know there are challenges in all the countries, including in South Africa, that probably with Angola and Zimbabwe would be the only countries that could really assist militarily. But if you had some kind of holistic intervention that was, based on some kind of intervention plan that wasn't purely a military solution, that would be, that would be the ideal situation. The difference here is that there are big role players, there are multinational companies, there is the international community beyond Africa, beyond SADC, that is willing to assist. So that would be the ideal situation, is that there would be assistance based on, as I said, looking at all the issues that we addressed in terms of the root causes, the development, the human rights, and that any assistance that is given to Mozambique would be focused on protecting civilians and helping people. That must be the focus of international aid to Mozambique. In order to prevent it from escalating. So that, as I said, that would be the first prize. But at this point, we don't see any detailed plans in this regard. But that is what should happen, ideally.
All right. And at 2 minutes past 8 o'clock Central African time, I must thank each one of the panelists for having joined us this evening discussing what is the situation in Mozambique. Thank you for your time, Professor Yusuf Adam, Ms. Jasmine Opperman, and Ms. Liesel Fodran. Thanks to all of you for your time this evening.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And unfortunately, that's where we're going to have to leave tonight's discussion for this evening. Thank you for tuning in. Of course, if you've watched us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, as well as on our live stream, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. So it's going to be interesting to watch what now happens, how the international community is going to respond to the situation. And of course, it does seem like a humanitarian crisis is on the verge of unfolding in Cabo Delgado province of Mozambique. We see reports that at least 1,500 people have died during violent terrorist attacks in the province, and an estimated 250,000 people have been displaced. But as Professor Yusuf Adam has said earlier on, we must not lose our humanity. From myself, Zahid Jadwat, and the team, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.